Hey guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. Fedora Friday number 28. Fedora Friday number 28. Hopefully you guys are having a good start to your to your weekend, right? Maybe some of you guys are lucky enough to be at home this Friday. Um, but yeah, either way, if you're just waiting for the clock to hit 5 o'clock, I wish you the best and a happy Friday. This might actually be my shortest Fedora Friday. This was a movie suggested by our good buddy Josh. Honestly, I didn't even know. Like when he mentioned it at first, I was thinking of the 1960 movie with John Wayne, which I saw a while back. And then in looking it up, I saw that there was an actual remake with an actually pretty good cast. So I saw this movie for the first time this morning, right? So I don't have a whole lot of in-depth analysis. This is going to be one of those movies that I definitely have to watch again, right? And I don't know why per se, right? I mean, it could be a function of like some of the characters, right? I have seen critiques of this movie in terms of like the lack of character development, but maybe that was purposeful, right? I mean, I don't know. I think a lot of folks are familiar with like the events of the Alamo, right? And I'm no big historian, but the way I understand the events of the Alamo is it kind of starts with like the Mexican Revolution, right? In 1821, or more or less, you had the Mexican Revolution, right? They kind of fought off the Spaniards and essentially kind of took over control. And this area here in the Alamo, I guess right in I guess what's now known as San Antonio, Texas becomes kind of like it's Mexican territory, but it kind of becomes almost kind of like a neutral territory, right? You got folks, from the U.S. coming in, and then you obviously have Mexicans living there, and ultimately over the years, the population starts growing, and then you get what's known as Texians, right? Those are the Anglos living in what's now known as Texas here. And then you have the Tejanos, which are like kind of the Hispanic, right? The Mexicans living in this area. And, I guess all is well until you start seeing like some of the, I guess, I don't know, more of like the, I guess, takeover. I don't know. Essentially things like slavery, which was abolished by the Mexican government. Slowly but surely, like, I guess there was like tension. And that leads up to the events of like the Texas Revolution, which is what the movie kind of captures here. And you have a situation where Mexico elects a new president, or I guess dictator, so to speak. Hey, we got my man Paul. Well, let me see if I can get Paul onto the stage here. Having a little trouble. Paul, you might be not having a strong connection. It's kind of like not allowing me to bring you onto the stage. Yeah, I don't know if it's the same thing that happened before, but whatever Morgan suggested before, maybe what you need to do. We'll see if we can get Paul onto here. Let's see. I'll try again to add you to the stage. Yeah, it's not liking me adding Paul here. We'll give Paul a little bit. We definitely have enough time. Like I said, I only have a few photos here to show. Um, Paul, hopefully you're hearing me. I'm trying to get you onto the stage, but it won't let me. You might just need to clear out and try again. But yeah, essentially leads up to the was known as the Texas Revolution, right? And you have this new Mexican president that essentially is promising to kind of take over the territory back, and you have kind of a back and forth, and you have this stronghold at the Alamo, which is a mission, right? Where they're kind of spreading the faith, and you have the current Texian army essentially asking for help, and that's kind of where you get the events of the Alamo. Let's see if we can get Paul in here. No, Paul, we're still not able to add you in there. I don't know what's going on, my friend. Weird. It seems like we've been having a little bit more of these technical issues lately. Hopefully, this is not something that's going to become normative of StreamYard. I do know like their logo has changed. You can see the logo. I don't know. I don't know if it's here for you guys, but I can see that the logo looks different. It doesn't have any color. So I guess it blends in a little bit more. But yeah, let's see if I can. Nope, still not able to add you, Paul. I don't know what's going on. Let me make sure that you're able to know that I'm not able to add you. You can probably hear me, but I just want to make sure. Is not allowing me to add you to the stage. All right. Interesting. Well, Morgan saved the day last time. Hopefully Morgan can Oh, wait a minute. I hear you, Paul.
Oh, can you?
Yeah, I can hear you. Let me see if I can
Okay. Hey, there we are.
So we got all right. So there we go. We got Paul on here. Sorry, Paul. That might have been just me.
That's right.
You know. So
good afternoon to you.
Yeah. How you doing,
Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, all right. Thank you. All right. Just relaxing on a Friday afternoon, and just thought, I'll join my man online, and we'll have a little bit of a chat. Great.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. Any new hat news?
I'm making another one of these Johnny Depp style hats this week for a DJ guy that I work with in Ibiza and London.
Yeah.
He's wanting one of these. I've got the Harlequin hat that I had. I've actually got a gentleman who's buying that from me, so that's lovely.
Yeah.
I've had about 4 hats go out this week, I think. So yeah, been quite busy. So very good, really.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. I mean, again, I know that you and Nathan are cooking something up for us, and we can't wait to see it. You know, you guys have been mum on it, so I admire the ability to keep.
It's Nathan's project, and he asked me to help him fulfill it, and so it's his choice as to when he releases it and tells everybody about it. But I think I find it quite exciting. And I feel honoured to have been approached. So let's see when the time's right, what he's got to say.
That sounds good, my friend. Sounds good. So yeah, I was mentioning this in the chat. Like, this movie was a movie suggested by Josh, and I had not seen this movie. When he originally mentioned it, I thought immediately of the of the 1960 I guess original with John Wayne as Davy Crockett. And I hadn't seen that movie in a long time. So I had originally thought that was the movie I was doing. And then I find out that there was a remake with a pretty stunning cast. And I did kind of a little bit of a brief overview of kind of the events that led to this movie, right? You had the Mexican Revolution, where they kind of kicked the Spaniards out. And then what's now known as Texas became a little bit of this like no man's land over the next few years, where folks, the Anglos from the U.S. were encouraged to come in and become Mexican citizens. But slowly but surely, as the Anglos came in, they brought some of their customs and kind of grew in number, and then that area kind of became kind of in doubt. And then that kind of led to the events of the Texas Revolution, which is what's kind of captured here in the movie. And really, you had a newly elected Mexican president that kind of promised to take back that area and was trying to make good on that. And there was kind of a lot of a back and forth. And because of the small numbers of folks in this area, of what's known as, they call themselves the Texians. They were the Anglos living in this part of Texas. And they cohabitated with what the folks known as Tejanos, which were the I guess Mexican American, the Mexican folks that lived in this area that kind of identified as folks from this area. So you had this conflict brewing, and the kind of the stronghold here at the Alamo, right? You had a small number, but they're wanting to fight. They were out there seeking help. So you had these characters that came in. You have here, you have kind of a pretty stellar cast. You have Patrick Wilson. I will always know Patrick Wilson here on the left from the movie Insidious. I don't know if you guys are familiar. It's kind of a horror type, more suspenseful type of horror movie here on this left. And I think that's my favorite hat in the movie. Honestly, it kind of looks like a gambler, and it's got some brim trim here. I don't know exactly how the name for this hat. So you guys that might be a little bit more familiar with kind of this frontier style, if this has a name, you let me know, because, you know, for me, it's kind of like, okay, it's shaped like a gambler, and maybe that's what it is. But it's a nice brown felt with this matching brim trim, and I thought it was really sharp. You see that throughout on William Patrick, who plays William Travis, one of the folks that comes in to help out with the troops. And then you got Billy Bob Thornton. Now, Billy Bob Thornton I mean, what can you say? The guy always seems to kind of infuse his own Billy Bob Thorntonism into every character. And it kind of works here, right? Like for me, we watched Tombstone, you know, we reviewed Tombstone, and I feel like Billy Bob Thornton's portrayal of Davy Crockett kind of mimicked like Val Kilmer's portrayal of Doc Holliday. He kind of steals the show, right? And I think that's something that you can kind of expect from Billy Bob Thornton. Now, you don't see really Davy Crockett wearing a hat. I think the original, and I believe the true life Davy Crockett wore a coonskin hat. You know, it's an iconic hat, right? It's kind of called the Davy Crockett, right? And but I don't think he wears it once throughout this film. Again, I've only seen it in one pass, but in my watching the movie this morning and then going through all the stills, I don't see that hat. So you guys let me know if you guys seen this movie, whether he does wear it, and I just ended up missing it. But yeah, he does a good job in the movie, but not really a hat on him. And then last here you have Jason Patrick, who's actually a descendant. He's actually related to the late great Jackie Gleason of The Honeymooners. A lot of folks don't know that, but yeah, very fine actor. And you know, he plays James Bowie, who also contributes troops. And then ultimately the conflict, right? We had essentially, you got less than 200 troops as part of this Texian Tejano army battling almost 2,000 Mexican soldiers, right? So essentially a 10-1, more or less. I know the exact numbers are always debated, and that's the thing about this movie. I couldn't tell you how historically accurate a lot of this stuff really is. I do know that the hats are really great, so, hey. Let's see here. So you got some more shots of of the hats. Like I said, they don't really alter the hats, right? They kind of keep the same hats, but they give you different angles. Obviously, the lighting will impact, how the felt is viewed. The way I understand it, and based on some of the commentary, is that the hats are historically accurate, and meaning that this is exactly what was worn in the frontier in those days. Again, we're talking about 1835, and they do remind me of a lot of the hats that you see in Gangs of New York, right? Nathan just watched Gangs of New York, and that takes place a little bit later, and obviously in what's now known as New York, but essentially, the hats look very similar. So you got a lot of top hats in here, specifically Wellington style top hats, or at least what I think is Wellington. So we'll see some of that. We only have a few photos here. Again, I don't know why this movie came out in 2004, but I didn't see as many photos from this. And again, I think the fact that I don't think it really did well at the box office, right? So I think it's considered like a flop of a movie. And maybe that's why I never heard of it, but it does have a good cast, and I think that the hats are definitely hold up. So you can see here some of these shots. I can't remember if these are actually from the movie or they're kind of like a photo shoot, but you can see the outfits. I don't know how historically accurate, but they ring true and they look good. So you can see here, they kind of cut some striking figures here. But yeah, one thing I do know is that, obviously when you have folks coming in that are commanding, right? Too many cooks in the kitchen, you did have real life tension between these gentlemen, specifically William Travis and James Bowie. And one thing I know they did get accurate in the movie is that James Bowie was actually suffering from tuberculosis. So again, kind of another connection to what we saw with Tombstone. With James Bowie in terms of tuberculosis, right? We know Doc Holliday was also suffering from tuberculosis. So I thought that definitely it seemed like they had a decent number of details here, right? So I have no reason to doubt like at least some of the accuracy, but you guys already know I don't really watch these things for accuracy. One thing I will tell you though is that I really didn't get a sense, and again, it could just be a function that me just watching this movie once, I didn't get a lot of character development in all of this, as somebody that doesn't really know a whole lot about Davy Crockett or James Bowie. I didn't really get a sense that I knew them other than like seeing the actors, right? Like at Billy Bob Thornton's, like I know him, he's doing the Billy Bob Thornton thing. But I really doubt that the real Davy Crockett was like Billy Bob Thornton, or maybe he was. I don't know. But it was entertaining, definitely. Then you get here another shot here of Patrick Wilson as Willem Travis, and again, I really do like this this hat. Again, for me, it kind of seems like a hybrid top, like low tier top hat with like a gambler style. Again, it's got a decent sized brim. If I had to guess, maybe 3 inches, right? It's kind of a flat brim cap, hat. And but it looks good, and again, Patrick Wilson doesn't seem like an overly huge guy. He's not a small guy by any means, but the hat looks right on him.
I wonder, Luke, if they took the lead on the design from like the more formal hats that perhaps the city dwellers wore, with the fact that they were perhaps spending more time out in the sun in the in the outside of the cities, basically, that they needed more protection around their face, and therefore they had to create shade, and therefore they thought, well, they'll keep the formality of the crown of the hat being as in the one on the left, a more of a top hat with coming out rather than straight down, but having a wider brim, and maybe that sort of hybrid of formality in terms of the crown style, but almost Western in terms of the brim, because when you look at a gambler style, here's a gambler style here, it's very sort of 10 centimeter 11 centimeter height at the crown, and those are clearly a lot higher. They're probably 12 13 centimeters, and then here we've got almost it's a pencil curl basically down here, but quite a wide brim, sort of 3 inches or so. And
it's a beautiful hat, Paul.
This is thank you. This is the sort of thing that we do today, if you like, and we call it a festival hat, or it's a mix between a formal fedora and a Western style cowboy hat, and people dress it up accordingly. But I wonder whether that's really where they got the style from there. I don't know. I'm just thinking on my feet, but it may well be.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, again, I as somebody that just watched the movie for the first time, I didn't have a chance to kind of do all that background research. But, in speaking with Josh briefly, Josh couldn't join us because he's I think taking a test is what he mentioned. So good luck on that test, Josh. And thanks for the suggestion on the movie. But he did mention that this was a movie that was a lot more historically accurate. I think he mentioned that one of the actors here is not one of the more well-known actors, does play their great-grandfather in the movie. So I think they were attempting to kind of go a little bit more accurate with this remake than the original 1960 version with John Wayne. Obviously, John Wayne's an iconic American actor. And, he added his own flair, right? A lot of folks, he is Davy Crockett, but I feel like they did something really good here with the movie, with trying to get a little bit more of I guess, less mythology, right? So a little bit more accuracy, but not be so tied down where they couldn't like make it dramatic and palatable. And again, if you just watch it, even if you don't like this movie, just watching it for the hats, right? Just to give you some sense of shapes. Because there's a couple photos, right? And I feel like since we since we saw it first, I'm now seeing it more often, right? We talked about Doc Holliday in Tombstone with the slant on the one side of the brim, and I saw it again. And so hopefully that photo will come up at some point here soon, so you guys can see that came up right again. So my guess is that that's probably something that you saw more often, back in these days. And I think it's kind of cool because it's one of those things I'm like, that stands out. And I don't know if there's a functional basis for it. Who knows? There might be. But it looked kind of cool. And we saw Johnny Depp do that with one of his fedoras as well. I think that might have been the first iteration. So, but yeah, definitely very cool.
They certainly look quite thick. The felts that they're using to make these they're not dress weight felts. They're clearly Western weight felts.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the definition in them and the size of the brims and everything, they've got to be a sort of 235 gram or upwards,
yeah,
to get that and stiffened quite a lot. So they would be really quite robust hats that could put up with a lot of bad weather, which no doubt if you were out on the prairie or out on the range for a while and taking some bad weather, these are the sort of hats that would keep you in good stead.
Yeah. And that's probably been one of my biggest takeaways from, since I've started this channel, is in speaking with you, Paul, speaking with Morgan, because when learning about those weights and like you can hear it, right? So you go and you knock on that felt and you can hear the sound that it makes. It's quite robust. Yeah. Exactly.
A 235 80% beaver, so it's quite tough.
Yeah, and I think that's when it gets into like as somebody that's working with a custom hatter, what are you going to do with this hat? Are you going to be out there toiling, right? If you're out there in the I guess the Texas heat, you're going to want something that can withstand the elements as well as that sweat that's going to be coming through. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, they definitely do look like these sturdier felts. Yeah. Let's see here. We'll keep this going. Again, another angle of that hat on Patrick Wilson. Again, the brown. It looks so elegant. You know what I mean? It's one of those things which again he's commanding, right? William Travis is one of those folks that came in and contributed troops. And I guess this might be a hat that you would wear to say, "Hey, I'm somebody," right?
I mean, look at that beautiful trim around the brim. Yeah. I mean, that's got to be a 25 mil grosgrain on there, I'm sure. And they would have tacked it around the top and then flipped it over and then sewn it around underneath. And it's it takes a lot longer to do that than a regular trimming on the brim, but my does it look a lot better, and that just looks stunning.
Yeah, you would actually have to treat this, I guess, similar to like a Homburg, would you not, Paul? It just seems like to my eye.
Yeah, I mean it's got some sort of indications of that. I think the other gentleman's hat, not this one here, but the other one was far more close to a Homburg. But I think you can imagine them sitting down with some hatter somewhere and saying, look, I want a hat that I can wear every day that's going to give me some formal appearance because of the style of clothes that I wear. It's going to give me some protection in the outdoors. And they come up with this sort of design. But it would have been lovely to be a fly on the wall in those days as to how they put these together.
Yeah, and I don't know who did the costuming for this particular film. But that's something that if folks watch in syndication and you kind of know a little bit more, maybe Josh is aware about who did the costuming, particularly the hats for this particular film, because I think they're like, wow, they really do catch the eye. And obviously you see like what Paul mentioned, the Tejano gentleman right next to him, interesting, brim shape. You got the brim trim, right? You're gonna have that same. You're right. It does look kind of Homburg esque, and I just love it. Like I said, I don't know if there's like a formal name for these both of these hats, but they do look very good. Let's see here, and then you can see obviously some more of the Texian and Tejano hats on the folks right behind. So, and you can see right here on the far. I don't know if it's going to be on your left, but here you see some of the brim shapes, and I think there was a couple more shots that show some more of those unique brim shapes. So
It's very interesting how these different hat shapes were in those days. 100 and almost 200 years ago. 150 odd years, 160 years ago. Very, very different to what we've got today. Even if you look at what American Western or enthusiasts or cowboys are wearing, it's not very close to what we've got here. I mean, yes, they're Western weight, and yes, they're wide brimmed, but they're far more of the sort of hat style that we today know as being a cowboy or a Western hat. Which is such a shame, because how could we, or what would we wear to actually put on one of these style of hats? I mean, they're very different, aren't they?
Yeah, and Paul, that's a great observation. One thing, like off the top of my head, I can think of is, if you're getting your hat custom made in those days, you're probably going to see a lot of like proprietary type shapes, meaning like this is the type of hat that I made. It's nobody really makes a hat kind of like this. But over the course of time, right, as you start getting these like well-known models, right, beyond the top hat, obviously, maybe some of these shapes are kind of like long gone, right? Because the folks that made them, unless somebody else picked up the mantle, you probably wouldn't see them. So that could account for some of it. I'm at least coming up with that's my story for right now, unless I hear otherwise. Let's see here. So we got some more. Obviously, you see some of the more top hats, and then the gentleman on the again on my far right, you can see here he's one of the Tejanos, right? He also brought troops. And he was played. This actor, I know him from the movie Blow with Johnny Depp. He is Jordi Moya, and he plays the Tejano that kind of commands some of the Tejano troops. And you see them working along with the Texians here. And again, the hat that Jason Patrick wears here, this black felt hat, also kind of looks like a gambler. I don't know for sure if it is. But again, it fits him really well. Like I said, it just goes really well with his whole attire. Yeah.
The gentleman on the right there is his hat is very similar to the hats that the Musketeers would wear.
Yeah,
it's not far off, is it? When you look at it,
yeah,
that's got a smattering of that.
Yeah, and that, I mean, I would think that kind of makes sense, right? I mean, kind of, yeah. Wow, that's really cool. I love that. Again, it's one of those things where you're gonna see like these I think in a lot of fashion in general, these influences where you'll have the same, like a different slant on the same basic idea. It's certainly a functional hat, right? This is a hat with obviously, I don't know, I'm gonna guess is at least 3.5 to 4 inches of brim, maybe more. But yeah, definitely functional for the day. I mean, most of these hats are, right? You see some of the kind of these toppers here that have less brim on them, and they kind of look like the folks that are wearing them kind of look a little bit more aristocratic, right? But these frontier folks, they definitely have the functionality with that large brim. Let's see what else we got here. We got another side angle here. We got Davy Crockett and William Travis here. Again, you get the side profile of Travis's hat. Again, that's the hat that I couldn't stop looking at. When I saw it from the different angles, as well as the different lighting, it just looks good. Like that's kind of a hat that I think might sell right now. So for all you hatters, right? I don't know. There's something different, like kind of unique about it, but also it's just elegant. And William Travis was definitely an interesting character here. Again, I've heard that the portrayal of William Travis was a little nicer than the real William Travis. Again, I'm not going to get into that because, well, I wasn't there certainly, and I'm not an expert. But again, I have no idea if the real William Travis was this kept up, but regardless, I like it. You can see obviously some of skipped ahead. You can see some of the toppers in the background here. Again, you see kind of like a ragtag group here, kind of fighting alongside to try to hold things down.
It's amazing. They go into battle, yet they're still wearing a top hat, and almost like a tailcoat. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Again, I don't know anything about war. I'm thinking like, I don't think these men expected to live. So my thinking, and this could just be weird old me, that they're like, if I'm gonna die, which I likely am, I'm gonna look good doing it.
Good point made. Well, yeah, I like it.
I'm gonna leave a really good looking body. So yeah, that's how I explained it. Again, you see more of these hats here. Davy Crockett still hatless. Again, I don't know. That could just be a Billy Bob Thornton saying, "Hey, I don't want to wear a coonskin hat." I don't know. If you know the answer, you can tell me. But again, the outfits and the hats, just the silhouettes are great. Let's see here. This is kind of another shot of Davy Crockett, kind of leading the troops. The way I understand it, this was a 13-day, kind of a standoff here at the Alamo, right? Obviously, the Alamo was not a success, right? The whole point of the Alamo was like, it was kind of like the motivator, right, for like the ultimate win. I believe that was the Battle of Jacinto that Sam Houston led. And then we'll get to Sam Houston in a second, because that was also a very fine actor playing Sam Houston. And that's it. We got Dennis Quaid, all right? Dennis Quaid as Sam Houston. And then you got obviously the, I don't know, I guess, is this called the trifecta? I don't know why I've got, it's the try something hat, but obviously, the military buffs would have like the exact answer.
Well, in the UK, we know it as a tricorn hat.
The tricorner, that's it.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's the same in America, but tricorn, yeah.
No, I think you're right. Paul. Tricorner. And obviously, Dennis Quaid, very fine actor, and ultimately in the movie, Sam Houston, well, not in the movie, but in actual real life, Sam Houston leads that battle of San Jacinto. They capture the general president of Mexico and kind of force his hand in terms of surrendering the area. And we'll get to that actor as well. That was another, like we mentioned Billy Bob Thornton, but the portrayal of that of Santa Anna was interesting as well. We got another shot of Sam Houston here in the tricorner, and then you got Juan Seguin in the background as well. Interesting portrayal. Again, I couldn't tell you if it was accurate. Dennis Quaid his character definitely left an impression. They all kind of seemed like to be battling some kind of vice, usually drinking. So, which I guess is probably understandable. And you can see that top hat here, that big kind of Wellington style top hat. Really cool. I'm a big fan of the Wellington top hat. That would be my preference. I don't own a top hat, but if I had my druthers, I'd get one as a Wellington style. Let's see, and preferably collapsible. That would be nice. I don't know if the Wellingtons are collapsible, but that's kind of one of the things I always keep my eye out on. I haven't seen one that's in my price range, but you never know. Got here another shot here. You got Jordi Moya here with that big brim, and you can see that brim curl as well on that hat. Again, I think he's an underrated actor. Great portrayal here, and then you can see some of the other hats here. Just again, usually pretty functional. You got that ribbon here right in the middle. That's a very wide ribbon. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll just keep it going. Again, this is the General Santa Anna. Again, that face, I think, says it all. Like, this is a very smug guy. Again, I don't know. I think the true life Santa Anna was kind of known more as a dictator, right? So he definitely wasn't known as a kind of a nice guy, but I don't know. I feel like the portrayal here was a little over the top. I think they even went down to like the evil villain laugh. which, you know, can be a little corny, but who knows? Like I said, I don't know if this would classify as an all-time favorite villain. Certainly not no Bane or Bill the Butcher. But they definitely do play up the fact that that Santa Ana. Oh, we got Nathan. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, jump on in, buddy. Yeah. And if Nathan has seen this movie, hopefully he can chime in a little bit, you know, about his thoughts. But yeah, Santa Ana. Now, interestingly, that Santa Ana was really villainized in the movie, but the folks under, like the troops, were kind of normal, right? So I don't know, again, how accurate that is, but I thought that was an interesting observation here in seeing that portrayal. But definitely, this is the Emilio Echeverria, very over the top portrayal. Nathan, how's it going, my friend?
Hey, how are you?
Doing well, doing well. What's the good word, Nathan?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys.
Yeah, likewise. So we're covering the Alamo. I have no idea if you've seen either this version, which is the remake, or the original with John Wayne. This is my first time. I've seen the original, but a long time ago. Obviously, John Wayne, iconic as Davy Crockett. This remake, I didn't even know existed until, just today, like early this morning, because I was planning to go and rewatch the original, and then that's when I came across that it was remade, and then I saw the cast, and I'm like, okay, I'm watching this instead.
No, I until Josh brought it up the other day, I just haven't seen this, so I'm gonna make usually the ones you been covering. I try to make an effort to go back and watch because a lot of them just haven't watched. Even like the Tulsa King, I started watching a little bit of that, but I'll have to admit I don't get a lot of screen time in just with a lot of activities I do. But hey, if you could go back maybe one slide.
Sure. Let me know. Let's see.
I think
go back. Was it this one?
Okay. So the gentleman on the left, I just wanted to take a closer look at his crown
with the black hat.
Yeah.
Let's see. Are you queuing in on the slant?
Yeah. Well, I'm just. Yeah. It's almost like, and Paul had one a few weeks ago. It was almost like a gambler, but like it had this little like pitch in the front, and I was trying to figure out if that's what that was.
Yeah. He's definitely got it comes to a point, just like the one that Paul's showing. Let me see if I can.
Okay. Man, I'm really digging that crown.
I agree. It looks really sharp.
Yeah, that looks real good.
Yeah, I have no idea, Nathan, who did the hats for this. Like I said, Josh suggested the movie. Maybe he is aware. But you had some really good felts. Obviously, these are more Western weight felts. And we talked about that ever since Johnny Depp. When we covered Johnny Depp and we saw that slant, then we went ahead and saw Doc Holliday. And then now we're seeing that here. So it makes me think that this was actually something that really was very common during this era.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
Yeah, and I have no idea the functional basis of it. It certainly looks cool, but there might be a whole functional basis for why somebody would do it. So I'm curious if anybody knows that.
It may just have been that it was so dusty out there that they took their hat off, Howard by the brim, and just wrapped it around to get rid of the dust, and that happened to curl the brim up, and he put it back on.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, for me, like when I see something like that, I'm like, okay, what can you hide in there? Like for me, I'm like, if you're somebody out there, I don't know if you're tobacco or whatever it is, something that you want to keep in there, or whatever. I don't know. I'm making this stuff up, but that's sometimes that's what we do when we can't exactly know the reason for why something exists. Like what use would it have?
I saw recently a Western hat maker, and I wish I could recall where I saw it, but obviously it was a cowboy hat, Western hat, and he had this little indent on his right flank, and he called it, I can't remember the exact verbiage, but it was something like a hat tip dent or something like that. Yeah. But it was basically where he had kind of been taking it off and tipping his hat. Right. And it actually had created that indent. So Yeah, all kinds of brim. And like I showed that picture the other day of my KTG brim, I don't know what happened. I usually don't set it down on anything like that would kind of curl that brim up like that. But so far I've been sporting it. You know, I'm like, you know what, this is the this is my Doc Holliday version of what happens in my world.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. I mean,
Hey, you know, like I said,
Luke, it sparks another topic for conversation, really, in so much as, you know, do we all prefer to wear our hats pristine and in shape and looking 100%, or do we like wearing them and then letting the crown go out of shape, the brim go out of shape, and actually it shows as though it's been loved and used? And you know, with this distressing that some people go into, you know, all of that sort of thing, it does beg the question, doesn't it? You know, because sometimes you need something that's a bit more relaxed to go with a pair of jeans rather than something that's formal to go with a jacket.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because I'd be in the camp of like, I prefer to have it done through natural use. Like I said, I have way too many hats to take super duper care and start like, you know, cleaning them every single, you know, whatever. You know, I do a decent brush before I put my hat on, you know, if I have enough time. And ultimately, you know, it's one of those things, and that could just be the vintage, you know, the vintage collector in me. Like, I will receive the hat probably in less than perfect condition, and if it finds a new home, it'll probably be, you know, if not in the same shape or maybe a little bit more worn, because I have used it. And again, maybe that's just my excuse to be lazy and not go super crazy in terms of maintenance. But for me, it's like, that's part of the character. And you're right, Paul. Like I said, if you're somebody that wears, you know, jeans, and who knows, they could be distressed as well. You don't want your hat maybe looking too pristine, right? It kind of looks a little off, you know, and who knows, maybe it just makes you look, if you have a relaxed personality, the more worn in style looks better.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think, yeah. So that should be how you turn that into a topic. But yeah, I was just thinking about, you know, we could probably require a little bit of work, but we had a dozen or so pictures of like from new to distressed and like the different varieties. Because I mean, Johnny Depp certainly takes that to the extreme, but there's other little nuances that, you know, shows usage, and it's still a very appealing hat.
We've got a gentleman in the UK that's called Gary Hull, I think his name is. And Gary, he specializes in making pork pie, trilby, fedoras, and they're sort of oiled. You know, they're sort of oiled and are burnt and looked, you know, severely distressed. But then when you look inside, they've got a beautiful lining and leather. But he's got a certain following, and it would be great to get somebody like him on that could actually talk about it, because it's not something that I'm a great fan of, but I do appreciate the skill and the following that style has got.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one of those things, I mean, obviously Robert's not here. Robert will be back in early May. But, you know, I'll reiterate his point. You know, his point about the greater kind of more festival type style hats is you don't see them as much in the wild. And it begs the question, where are they wearing it to? And that might be one of the questions we have for somebody that creates more of the distressed or festival style hats, to see if they follow up. Are they wearing them for like an event? You know, is it a one-time use, or maybe they are using it and we're just not exposed? Maybe there's just a certain area where they're all congregating.
I think in the UK we've got very much wearing them to events, but then we've got a part of the country, as I'm sure you have, down in the west, called Cornwall and Devon, and there's lots of surfing and that sort of style of free and easy living, if you like, that the youngsters love, and it seems to be a certain relaxed style that the festival hat fits in very nicely, because clearly there's a lot of sun down there. They don't want to get burnt, and it's a sort of relaxed style that they like. So that's more likely to see a festival hat down there than probably anywhere else outside of a music festival.
Yeah, agreed. again, it's one of those things where, like I said, they're obviously selling. Like, there's a decent number of folks selling these hats. And now the question is, like, where are they at? But yeah, Nathan, before you came in, I was talking about Billy Bob Thornton, who plays Davy Crockett in this movie. And if you watch Billy Bob Thornton for a number of times, you kind of get like his thing, right? Like, he has that Billy Bob Thornton thing that he kind of infuses. And I got the same kind of like feel from Billy Bob Thornton here as Davy Crockett from like Val Kilmer and Tombstone, right? Kind of like, yeah, this probably like the real Davy Crockett was probably not like Billy Bob Thornton, but you always sit there, you got to enjoy Billy Bob Thornton doing his thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give this a shot. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, this one I definitely, again, I can't tell you, like, I wouldn't necessarily go as far as say as like this was like a super well done movie. I couldn't say it's a bad movie. I think the character development, that's the part. Maybe that's me being ignorant in terms of like not being the history buff that some folks are. It's like, oh yeah, everybody knows Davy Crockett was this way and William Travis was this way, but I don't have that benefit. For me, the only exposure I have is John Wayne as Davy Crockett. And if anybody knows John Wayne's another guy that does John Wayne things, right? It's like, I doubt Davy Crockett was also John Wayne. But yeah, and this character here, like I said, the president, the Mexican president, he's the evil villain, right? And he's played very over the top here in this movie. And again, I know that the real President Santa Anna was more of a dictator and was not known as a nice guy, but this was like almost a little bit more like I don't say comical, but theatrical. So it's definitely an over top performance here to match, I guess, Billy Bob Thornton's over the top portrayal of Davy Crockett. But yeah, this looks accurate to me. It's certainly beautiful military uniform, but I couldn't tell you if this was like true to life. It looks good though. Let's see here. Go in. And this is Kevin Page as Micajah Autry, and you can see here this hat, right? Obviously, is like distressed, but right, so it's worn. You can see some of the fraying on the ribbon here, but still looks really good. That's why I get like gives me these Hamburg vibes, right? We talked about how the Hamburg, is impossible not to look good, and you do see some of the distressed hats here. Which I gotta think is pretty accurate. But again, they still look good. It looks like you got some brim trim on this one as well. Nice little curl here on the brim. Let's see here. Keep this moving. We got here a classic top hat here. This has got to be an aristocrat here. And if it's not, then this is somebody that wants. He's one of those guys we talked about there. Like, right? Paul mentioned, Nathan, that some of these hats look too good to be out in the battlefield. Like, the way I could explain that is that they knew they were going to die and they want to look good doing it.
Oh boy!
So, and you can see here that might actually be the same gentleman. So you can see the topper here from a little bit more of a zoomed out angle. But yeah, this guy looks like a little bit more of the uppity type, which I guess that the top hat fits. So.
I was just thinking about the transition from, when top hats kind of, went to this wayside and you're transitioning into these smaller, maybe Hamburgs or like a fedora style. And
yeah,
you got that old top hat guy that's like, oh, that's not a hat. This is a hat.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to me, again, as somebody that couldn't, like, I'm no historian, like, knowing that this was kind of like, again, the frontier. This is a part of the of territory that belonged to Mexico, but folks from the U.S. were slowly creeping in and gaining in numbers and bringing in their own style. My guess is to try to make a buck, right? To make some money and do better for themselves. And you're probably going to have a mix of a lot of different folks, right? So we've had folks that were the Anglos calling themselves Texians, and then you had the Mexican folks that lived in the area that were the Tejanos, right? And they're all cohabitating and kind of mingling here. So,
What's funny though, Luke, is that when in previous conversations that we've had, we've been talking about the people that have got the money have the top hats, and then it goes right the way down to the flat caps, and there's the different stages. Well, if you were in a war, would you actually really want to wear a top hat? Because you're saying to the guys that are shooting at you, I'm quite important. You should probably pick me first.
Yeah, agreed.
So I don't get this really.
Yeah, we see that covered in a lot of war movies where they're like, you know, the commanders will dress just like the regular troops. They're like, I'm not wearing something to distinguish myself. That makes me a target. Yeah, agreed. I guess it's one of those things I can only again justify that they knew they were going to kick the bucket. They might as well look their best.
Oh, it's amusing for us anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, again, I can only speculate, but we talked about brim angles. We got brim angles. Look at this slant here. And this is a green felt.
Yeah.
Lovely green felt here with some brim trim and that slope that we've now seen seemingly everywhere now.
That looks like the steaming's gone on, doesn't it? You know, you sort of you get up, you put the edging trim on there, you introduce some steam, and then all of a sudden it goes bang, and it sort of goes to a floppy shape. And you know, many hatters like myself would experience that, and the language that comes out perhaps shouldn't be worn on air. You know, it's it can really set you back a little bit of time to sort it all out.
That makes a perfect sense of like, I sat on my hat, and this is how, or I slept on it. This is how it came out, and it stayed that way.
When I was a child and watching cowboy films, Western films, you know, you'd see them take their hats off, fill it with water, and actually give it to their horse to drink, and then put the hat back on. Well, of course, it's very sunny out there, so if it's drying the hat out, then of course it's going to dry the felt in all different shapes and sizes. So it makes a little bit of sense, perhaps, you know.
Yeah, like for me, maybe this helps you shoot a rifle better, right? If you're shooting from the right side, like this gentleman, you know, shooting from the right side, maybe this brim slant allows him to, you know, it doesn't obscure his vision or allows the appropriate amount of light to be able to see his sights. That seems
the guy on the right then. The guy on the right then, Luke, must be throwing grenades because he.
I don't know. Just like, that's a pretty floppy brim.
Just throw it up.
Yeah.
Hope for the best.
Yeah, that person is definitely looking for some protection. You know, it looks like a very slight gentleman. And that hat has seen definitely better days. You can see some of the fraying here. But yeah, I mean, that's probably darn accurate. Yeah. So again, we're seeing these brim shapes and just trying to come up with the rationale after the fact. I'm sure somebody knows the answer.
I guess there's no real rationale. It's just
yeah, it is. It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then sure enough, the truth might be like, yeah, we didn't intend to do that. It was just happened. You see that same gentleman here, right? And you see a different angle of that of that brim. Again, I love the green. You know, that's another thing I'll come away with from the channel is how good green looks in felt.
You know, in some Western films that I've seen over here, I guess the same as yours, is that I've seen them come in off the range and they've actually got somebody to sort their boots out. You know, they've dusted off their dust, they've given the shoe shine and you know, brought their boots back to some resemblance of being serviceable again.
Yeah,
I can't say I've ever seen a hatter standing by in a bar. You know, great opportunity being missed out there. You know.
Yeah.
All the guys wearing their hats, they must be very dusty. So
yeah,
I should have been there.
I think these guys will look at our brims and think, well, you know, what these guys do, just, you know, sit at a desk all day like these pony queens, you know.
Yeah. Sure,
I mean, you got the gentleman in the background with the slouch hat, which, you know, for me, it's like I always call that the old prospector hat, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice to be able to see it here. You know, it's like, all right, the old prospector. Let's see here. I think we only got a couple more photos here. This is just kind of a general town shot. You can see some of the Tejanos here, and some of the, you know, I guess this is just a mix of the Tejanos and the, you know, and the Texians here. But just to give you another silhouette of here at the Alamo. Again, this is a mission. Yeah, just I guess all kinds. You can see your kind of a battle shot here on the way to do battle. Again, pretty iconic imagery. Again, you have the different silhouettes here. You got the top hats here fighting along with the non-top hats. Yeah, and that basically is it. I mean, you know, obviously the you know, you had the battle of Jacinto that Sam Houston led. Obviously, they captured President Santa Anna, forced his hand to kind of sign over the rights, you know, to Texas. And then just, I think, probably like 10 years later, you had the U.S. formally kind of include Texas as the 28th state, right? 1845, I believe that was. And that led to the events of the Mexican-American War. So, you know, a little kind of a brief history lesson. This was a good movie. I think this is one of those movies I'm definitely gonna have to rewatch. You know, at that point, when I realized that, I was like, it's too late. I gotta get this thing done. And it turned out, we're just under an hour. Hopefully, you guys all you know, enjoyed that. You know, I want to thank Paul and Nathan for joining me on screen here. You know, thank you to Josh as well for suggesting the movie. Josh, like I said, I know you're taking a test right now. Hopefully you pass. And then afterwards, when you watch, drop some comments, you know, on anything else you want to share with the audience about the movie. But again, you know, I know there's some good hats in the original, but it's been a while since I've seen that. So if you're a big fan of John Wayne, definitely catch the original. But this one, I'm glad I found this. Definitely a stellar cast and worthy of a rewatch. But yeah, you know how I'm going to leave you, right? You got to support these fine gentlemen, right? You know, Nathan's cooking up a surprise for all of us, Nathan and Paul. So we'll look forward to that. And, you know, but, you know, even if you don't support these fine gentlemen, which you should, you know, what I'm going to say is the one thing you got to do, or we'll get, all right, I don't know, we'll get Sam Houston after you. I don't know. But regardless of what you do, what you got to do is stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao, everybody. Stay hatting.
See you, Kaya.